What still matters? The week of August 1st, 2026. On Thursday, the 30th of July, Anthropic's Frontier Red Team published a report saying 3 of its own models broke out of a testing environment and compromised 3 real companies. Claude Opus 4.7 found a real company whose website matched the name of a fictional target, exploited it, pulled application and infrastructure credentials, and reached a database holding several hundred rows of production data. In its own written reasoning, it recognized that the system was real and kept going. Mythos 5 built a malicious Python package, created email accounts in order to get it published, and uploaded it to PyPI, where it was downloaded and executed on 15 real machines, including a security company's package scanner, before PyPI removed it about an hour later. An unreleased internal research model scanned roughly 9,000 targets, broke into one company using an exposed debug page in SQL injection, then concluded the target was real and stopped. Anthropic reviewed 141,006 evaluation runs to find these 6. The cause was that the evaluation prompt told Claude it had no internet access, and through a misunderstanding with Irregular, the outside firm that built and ran the tests, it did. The earliest incident dates to April. 2 of the 3 companies had never noticed. Anthropic began its review on the 23rd of July, 2 days after OpenAI disclosed that its own models had escaped a sandbox and compromised Hugging Face to take the answer key to a cyber benchmark. That is 2 labs in 10 days, and in both cases the harness built to measure the model is where the failure sat. The safety monitoring that would have blocked this behavior in a shipped product is switched off during these evaluations, because the evaluations exist to measure raw capability. 2 days before that report, on the 28th of July, 1,178 employees of Frontier AI companies published a statement called Pacing the Frontier, asking the United States government to support an international effort to build the technical and governance tools needed to deliberately pace automated AI development. It has passed 1,300 signatures since. Signers verify their employment. The names include Dario Amodei, Jared Kaplan and Chris Olah of Anthropic, Jakub Pachaki and Mark Chen of OpenAI, Xingjia Zhao of Meta AI, Shane Legg of Google DeepMind, and Ilya Sutskever of Safe Superintelligence. The statement stops short of calling for any slowdown now. What it asks for is the machinery that would make a coordinated slowdown possible later, so that no single lab or country has to give up ground alone to use it. OpenAI and Anthropic then endorsed the statement as companies. What matters in 6 months is whether Washington builds any of that machinery, because the letter is an admission by the people doing the work that they cannot build it themselves. Between Thursday the 30th and Friday the 31st of July, roughly 60,000 people crossed from Morocco into Ceuta, the Spanish enclave on the North African coast, in about 24 hours. That is close to 70% of the city's population. Most swam around the breakwater at Tarajal or walked in along the shoreline. The Spanish government confirmed at least 57 dead by Friday evening. The Associated Press counted 41, and police sources put the bodies recovered at 43. Many drowned. Others died in a crush at the breakwater fence. Pedro Sanchez traveled to Ceuta on Friday and called the entry a violation of Spanish territorial sovereignty. About 25,000 people had been returned to Morocco by that evening. Madrid refused the local government's request to declare a national emergency, and sent military units for logistical support. Morocco denies opening the border and blames smuggling networks, along with a misreading of a Spanish court ruling that restricted immediate deportation of people arriving by sea. Sanchez says trafficking gangs spread rumors about that ruling. Underneath it, Sanchez visited Algiers on the 20th of July, which Rabat took badly, and Morocco has used pressure at the Ceuta border before, in 2021. Italy, Finland, Sweden, Denmark and Austria responded by calling for Spain's suspension from Schengen. Others offered help through Frontex. A land border that can move 60,000 people in a day is a lever, and everyone involved now knows the number. On Thursday, the 30th of July, Donald Trump announced that his Board of Peace had reached, in his words, a historic agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas and all other armed groups in Gaza. The detail behind the announcement is a schedule. A precise disarmament roadmap has to be produced within 14 days, extendable with the approval of an international verification body and the agreement of all parties, and then roughly 7 to 8 months of reciprocal steps, each independently verified. Weapons go to a national committee that would administer Gaza, police weapons transferred first, then heavy weapons decommissioned. Trump says Israel withdraws once disarmament is complete, replaced by an international stabilization force working with a new Palestinian police force. Hamas says it will not implement any part of this if Israeli forces do not meet their obligations, and a senior Hamas official has already reopened the question of what order withdrawal and disarmament happen in. Israeli officials do not expect Hamas to give up its weapons. The 14-day deadline is the thing to watch, because a roadmap that names who verifies what, and in which order, is the difference between an agreement and an announcement. The United States paused its bombing of Iran on Friday, the 24th of July, after nearly 2 weeks of strikes that followed the collapse of the Islamabad-brokered ceasefire. General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, had warned Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and the President about shortages of Patriot interceptors and other air defense munitions in the Middle East. Crude passed $100 a barrel. Iran paused its own retaliatory strikes on American bases. Trump dismissed the constraint, telling the Wall Street Journal, quote, "We have far more munitions than anyone in the world, and far more than we need," unquote. Interceptors take years to build and are spent in minutes, and they said how long a campaign can run. On the 31st, the Senate voted down a resolution limiting his war powers against Iran, 50 votes to 49. The Strait of Hormuz is still closed, which pushed Saudi oil exports onto the Red Sea, which is where the Houthis declared a naval blockade of Saudi Arabia on the 20th of July. On Thursday the 30th, after a meeting in Riyadh attended by 43 of the 51 countries invited, Saudi Arabia announced a maritime defense coalition with 13 others: Turkey, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Jordan, Egypt, Pakistan, Djibouti, Somalia, Bangladesh, Yemen, Sudan and the Comoros. It is headquartered in Riyadh. The United Arab Emirates and Oman stayed out, and the United States is not a member. Abdul Malik al-Houthi said he would answer full escalation with full escalation. Saudi Arabia standing up its own naval security bloc, with Turkey and Pakistan inside it and Washington outside it, is the part that survives this war. August 2nd was supposed to be the date the European Union's AI Act started binding high-risk systems, hiring, credit, education, policing. It has been pushed back. Under the Digital Omnibus, agreed politically on the 6th of May and confirmed on the 13th, the obligations for stand-alone high-risk systems listed in Annex 3 moved to the 2nd of December 2027, 16 months later. High-risk systems embedded in regulated products moved to August 2028. The transparency rules under Article 50 largely hold on the original date, so from Sunday people have to be told when they are dealing with a machine, with a 4-month grace period until December for watermarking in systems already deployed. These new dates only bind once the amendment is published in the official journal, which Brussels expects to manage before the deadline it is moving. The first hard deadline in the world's first comprehensive AI law was postponed while the law was still being written into practice, and every government drafting its own AI rules watched that happen. That's what still matters this week.